Good morning, good day, or good evening. My name is Eli Rowe, and this is the Middle-Aged Witch Podcast. Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining me. Right out of the gate, I want to acknowledge and ask for a little forgiveness because I am sick as a dog. This episode is pretty much brought to you by Ricola and Dayquil. So I may sound a bit rough, but we're just going to push on through and do it anyway. So, the eclipse was a few days ago. I think we're all in various stages of an eclipse hangover. Lord knows I am. Things are very turbulent, if not chaotic, and we need to respect that and just give it the space that it deserves. And we need to give ourselves a little room to breathe to the extent that we can. We can't always control what's going on around us. We can't always control our workload or our family drama or, external crises, what have you. But to the extent that we can, we owe it to ourselves to make a little room for some rest. We have another 2 weeks of Mercury retrograde to get through, so we just got to roll with the tide. Now, before we get to the topic of the day, I did want to read an email that I got, and this witch didn't say one way or the other whether they wanted to be anonymous. So we're going to err on the side of caution, and I'm going to keep any identifying information out of it. But the question is a good one, so let's get into it. I am new to your podcast. Your voice is so soothing. Thank you. Probably not so much today. And I'm learning a lot, and I'm loving your episodes. I would consider myself an armchair baby witch. Love that descriptor, by the way. I have been interested in the occult since I was 7 years old. I used to play occult games, as all of us youngsters did at some point. Unfortunately, I had no knowledge of the malevolent forces I would be letting into my home at that time. I suffered 8 years of traumatizing paranormal experiences until I moved out of my parents' home. I converted to Islam at the age of 20. I am now 30 years old and have since left that religion due to the overwhelming nature and rules of it. I am writing this letter to ask for advice. I am absolutely obsessed and in love with witchcraft, but I have so much trauma from my religious experience and paranormal experiences. I have attempted to practice spells and have had borderline panic attack because I'm afraid of something bad happening. I'm literally afraid to practice witchcraft, but it's all I can think about on a daily basis. I'm asking for guidance or for some advice. Okay, so we have touched on this sort of thing before, but it's been a minute. So I want to reiterate my feelings on this, and these are just my feelings. Take what you like and leave the rest. Just because I said it, that doesn't make it so. But as a witch with a deeply religious background myself, I completely understand and deeply empathize with the dissonance that's caused by feeling the pull of witchcraft, but trying to reconcile it with, the demonization of witchcraft that I experienced in my formative religious upbringing. It was very difficult to overcome those lessons. They are drilled into our heads as young people. We are very malleable when we're that young. And those lessons, those warnings from the people that we looked up to and trusted and revered, we internalized all of that when we're young. And that kind of conditioning is difficult to undo. It's really hard to unpick those knots. And when we add to this the terrifying paranormal trauma that this particular witch also experienced as a youth, well, we can see why the idea of performing spell work could trigger a panic attack. Of course it would. The mind is trying to protect itself from harm. So while we can know on an intellectual level that that's all that's going on, we can't always control what happens to our minds on a subconscious level when we try to challenge those notions. But I will recommend, if you are committed to moving forward on your witchcraft journey, which of course I support, that we start with spells that don't necessarily feel like spells. When we consider what a prayer is, it's an invocation of a higher power. We are supplicating for help or for blessings or for protection or whatever it is that we need. And my witches, that's what a spell is too. So I would begin there. Begin with a spell that feels like a prayer. If you are a witch who does not work with deities, you could simply invoke spirit, with a capital S, which is to say that you're simply addressing the universe as a whole, as an entity of itself. Simply lighting a candle, sitting quietly, and beginning by thanking the universe for our blessings, and then asking the universe for protection or for happiness or for health, for wisdom, for peace. This is a lot easier to manage for a newer witch with religious trauma, especially, than, some complicated 15-step ritual that includes like casting a circle and lighting a cauldron. But mark my words, it is no less powerful, and it will yield excellent results. And it will help you become more comfortable with the idea of spell work, because spell work is only as spooky as the individual witch makes it. And the more you do it, the less that fear is able to have a hold. It can't keep its roots. As far as being concerned about unwanted spiritual activity, I do want to be very blunt and very open and say that as you begin to stretch those little witchcraft wings, your light, so to speak, is going to burn more and more brightly. And it may draw the curiosity of entities that are around you. They're around us all the time. And they notice us because they can feel our openness. But you can, and you should, get real comfortable saying out loud that unwanted and uninvited spirits, deities, entities, angels, infernals, ancestors, guides, and so on, whoever you don't want, tell them that they are not welcome and they must leave your presence. As you progress in your craft, you may find that you become more open to spirit, and that's good, and I love that. But it's always up to you who gets to exist in your presence. You are the living, breathing soul, and you are more powerful than any disembodied entity. And I also want to point out, just to kind of underline really what this witch had to say about that sort of universal childhood experience of being interested in little occult games and having some kind of paranormal experience. Because that is such a true statement, isn't it? Ouija boards, Bloody Mary, ghost stories, playing light as a feather, stiff as a board. Like, we did all of those things when we were young and fearless, didn't we? And we all had some pretty good or bad results, I dare say. And why is that? I tend to think it's because we're still so open as youngsters. We aren't cynical and jaded and boring. So it's just a lot easier for us to get strong results from those little games. And the spirits have a much stronger direct line to us. And so it does also make it easier for the scary guys, the meanies, the baddies to get their hooks in and to follow us along and, kind of thrive off of the energy that our fear gives them. Sometimes it just does happen that a nasty spirit or entity can latch on and cause a lot of havoc and create fear. And that's a damn shame, because then we close ourselves off to that connection to the other side. So, got a little long-winded, but I sincerely appreciate that question, and I hope this helped. And now I want to talk about art as witchcraft, art as spell work. And this is actually a great way that a newer witch, or even a witch who is established but feels a little apprehension around spell work, can dip the little toesies into those witchcraft waters in a really powerful way. Now, we've spoken in previous episodes about using needlework, needlecraft in spell work. When it comes to sewing a mojo bag or a poppet or what have you, when it comes to stitching a sigil or a rune or a power symbol into your clothing for protection or for power or to enact a spell, we've discussed how the very act of hand stitching these things is spell work. We are using our hands to create a vessel or to create a symbol. This gives the work so much power. And it's the same, really, with any kind of artistic medium. Witches, as a group, I'm going to generalize here, tend to be very artistic. These are frequently very creative thinkers, left-brained individuals. And so it makes sense for these artistic types to use what's in their creative arsenals to manifest their desired outcomes. But here's my disclaimer, because I always have a disclaimer. We don't have to be particularly good artists. We just have to be passionate. We just have to have a vision. And it doesn't matter one bit what our chosen artistic medium is. We can write a poem that becomes a spell. We can write a song or play an instrumental piece that was written with specific intentions in mind. Of course, we can paint or draw or sketch a sigil or even a specific outcome. If I'm an artist and I'm looking for a new house, I would paint or draw that house. I would paint the exterior of the home just the way that I envision it. I would paint the interior of the home with the kitchen I want, or a specific fireplace or whatever. I would paint my family inside it. Create a visual depiction of my exact desires. I can paint my desires into existence, just as we can speak them into existence, or sing them into existence, or dance them into existence. Because that's right, dancing is art. It is performance art, and choreography tells a story of its own too. And that story can be whatever your desired outcome is. It doesn't have to be as literal as painting the house that you want. If you're a jewelry maker and this is your art, then by assigning meaning to the beads or the stones that you place or the specific materials that you use, the specific way that you wrap the copper wire or set the gemstones, this can all have significance to you and to your desires, and therefore it will have a significance for the universe. And every time you wear this particular piece, you're doing it with that intent. If this is a piece that is intended to bring you protection or peace or power or success, then that's exactly what you're going to receive when you put it on, because you've created it to do just that. So the thesis here is just to consider what your particular art form is, and then ask yourself how you can use it to advance your craft. Ask yourself how your art can inform your spell work and how your spell work can inform your art. There is no hard and fast rule about this, and this is what makes witchcraft such an individual pursuit, and this is part of what makes witchcraft so special and so beautiful. All us witches, we're snowflakes. No two are alike. All of our crafts are particular to us. All of our art is particular to us. And so the art that we create tells its own story, tells the universe what's in our minds, what's in our hearts, what we are calling into being for ourselves. So, next week, we will be talking about witchcraft with a little more structure. We will be talking about ceremonial witchcraft. So I hope you'll be there. It's going to be fun. My name is Eli Rowe, and this has been the Middle-Aged Witch Podcast. our troubles be less and our blessings be more, and nothing but happiness come through our door. The information presented is the author's opinion and does not constitute any health or medical advice. The content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any condition or disease. Please seek advice from your healthcare provider for your personal health concerns.